Training camp in the NFL is always an exciting time, but sometimes tempers can boil over a little bit. Well, in today's training camp practice, there was a scruff, but at the same time, both the offense and defense were going back and forth, exchanging blows. And we're going to talk about it in this episode, folks. So stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of Motor City Mania, MCM. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, as I said, folks, we're now officially into the second day of padded practice for the Detroit Lions training camp, and things are, again, already starting to ramp up. Things are already getting more intense, and that is definitely apparently obvious because there was a report that came out that there was actually a little bit of a scuffle. There was a little bit of a scrum. There was a little bit of a, I wouldn't necessarily call it a fight, so to say, but there was a bit of an altercation, I guess that's a better word, between Ife Melifonwu and Jameson Williams. Now, what particularly happened, we don't know. All we know is that there was a report that those two got into it a little bit, and that was apparently the end of it. We don't really know who won or whatnot or none of that nonsense. All we know is those two kind of got into it a little bit, which, let's understand something here. When we get into training camp, if you've played football, let's just put this in more like a personal perspective here. You're outside. It's hot. You're in the middle of summer. It's like, dude, you're wearing all this gear. You're wearing helmets, pads. It's hot. You are sweating. You are literally just, you don't have any damn patience. Like, you are just literally like, okay, I just want to get done with this because it's miserable. But at the same time, it's like, hey, this is the first time that these players have had a chance to really put on pads and to really, actually physically exert themselves the way football players should. So it's like, hey, you know what? I get it. It's hot, you're tired, tempers are going to flare, but at the same time, what we're seeing between, Ife Melifonwu and Jameson Williams here, at least in this report, is that, hey, these two have a lot of competitive pride. Obviously, because of the fact, well, let's take about it. Ife Melifonwu, he's a defensive back. Jameson Williams, he's a wide receiver. These two are definitely going to be competitive because they're on opposite positions that typically go against each other. But at the same time, obviously they're competitive just because from a natural standpoint. I mean, dude, if you're going to be in the NFL, you have to be competitive. And these guys, I guarantee you, are competitive because that's what their head coach is. That's what Dan Campbell is. He reeks of competition. Everything for him is how can I possibly get better? Everything for him is a competition about possibly getting better. And that's exactly the mindset. That's exactly the aura, if you will, that the rest of the team has. And I absolutely love it. And again, this desire to get better, this desire to keep pushing and, do whatever you can to just, hey, you know what, we're going to try and get a little bit more out today. Again, that reverts back to that gritty mindset of like, hey, we are going to do whatever we can. We're going to do whatever we have to do to get a little bit better every single day. Now, you would like if you didn't have these kinds of scrums and scruffs in training camp because it's like, hey, even if it's for a short bit, it does add a bit of a distraction. It's like, hey, I understand it happens, but let's keep it to a minimum. Let's focus on our work. Let's focus on our craft, and let's get back to work. So that was the first thing I wanted to lead with. Now, as I also said, the offense and the defense were going back and forth, apparently recording the reports all throughout practice. And where we're going to start with this is we're going to start with the defense in particular, because according to the reports that I got from Tim Twentyman, apparently the defense kind of had what I would call a mini pick fest today because they got 3 interceptions over the course of practice. They got 2 off of Hendon Hooker. They got 1 off of Jared Goff. And this was during what would be called a live period, where pretty much the whole point of the period is that, hey, you got full 11-man offense, full man 11 defense, and you're trying to pick up a first down on offense, and obviously the defense trying to stop them. And the whole point, the whole goal is to be like, hey, if you win, the offense, they got the first down. If you lose, obviously they did. Well, apparently what happened is Hendon Hooker was picked off twice, and he was picked off by Enos Rakestraw on one, and he was picked off by a safety by the name of Lawrence Strickland on another. Now, why is this particularly interesting? The reason why that's interesting is because if you guys remember, Amik Robertson said he was going to get the very first pick of training camp as far as in like a team period or a live period, whatever the case was, and so far, actually, the rookie, Enos Rakestraw, was the first one to get an interception. So that's pretty big because for the rookie to get the first interception, that right there again highlights the development. It again highlights the competitive nature that, guys like Terry and Arnold and Enos Rakestraw have. And again, we've heard what Dan Campbell has said. Hey, those guys are developing. They're fighting out there. They're doing their jobs. It doesn't like they're way over their heads. But again, there's still room for improvement. Obviously, they're rookies. But the fact that Rakestraw is already showing up, that's very good news to hear. However, though, with the good news for Rakestraw and, obviously for this other guy named Lawrence Strickland, there's bad news for Hendon Hooker. Again, I keep trying to put this in the best context I possibly can, but it's now apparently obvious that there is a problem with the backup quarterback position in the fact that Hendon Hooker is not developing the way people thought he would be developing at this point. And again, it's not just my perspective. There have now been several different reports that have come out that have continued to highlight how Hendon Hooker has been having problems in practice. I understand that people have wanted to say, back at OTAs, back at minicamp, he was dealing with a dislocated finger. I get it. I understand it. But it's like, listen, at this point, we're now starting to see it getting into training camp. And it's like, listen, he doesn't have an injured finger anymore. He doesn't have any of that nonsense. The fact of the matter is that he is struggling. And that's not good, especially when he is trying to compete with Nate Sudfeld for the backup quarterback job. So again, the fact that Hendon Hooker had 2 interceptions today, that's not good. Now, obviously, Jared Goff also had an interception, and that was done by linebacker Derek Barnes. And according to the way it was reported by Tim Twentyman, it was a throw over the middle, again, during this live period, whatever you want to call it, and Derek Barnes just made a great effort to go up, get the interception, and come down with it. And again, kind of reminds me almost of the interception that happened in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game last year that was in the playoffs where Derek Barnes got that interception, stopped the game, and the Lions were able to then advance to the conference championship game. I'm kind of envisioning an interception more or less like that because that one was over the middle. Derek Barnes had to put in a pretty good effort to get that interception. That's in essence what I'm envisioning in my head when I'm hearing something like this. But again, defensive backs definitely had a very good day. They got some interceptions. Obviously, linebacker Derek Barnes was also in on it, but it's looking like the defensive, passing game as far as being able to stop the quarterbacks and wide receivers, it's being able to keep up. It doesn't look like they're being completely overpowered. Now, that's talking about the defense. Let's talk about the offense here for a bit. I'm going to say this. Apart from the report that I just talked about with Jared Goff having that 1 interception, I keep hearing more and more reports every single day about how Goff is continuing to do his job extremely well, whether it's in terms of his accuracy, whether it's in terms of, consistently getting pass after pass completed. Well, now we're hearing it from a different perspective. This time what happened is Jared Goff had a play. And apparently what had happened is that he goes up to the line, he sees the defense that's in front of him. He knows what the defense is playing is not good for the play that he's got to run. So what does Goff do? Being the savvy vet that he is, he checks the play. He goes to a different play, or in essence calls an audible. And it's a perfect play opposite of what the defense is calling. And what happens? Darius Fountain, he literally is running up the seam. He's wide ass open. Jared Goff throws it to him. It's an 80-yard touchdown. This right here is, again, a perfect example of what a quarterback like Jared Goff can do for you. It's like, listen, this is a guy that has damn near seen everything the NFL can possibly throw at him. I mean, for crying out loud, he's been in the NFL now for 8 years. He's almost been in for a decade. He's obviously seen most of the defensive schemes, most of the defensive coverages, whatever have you, that can be thrown at him. So if he's able to say, okay, I know exactly what this defense is trying to do. I have a play that I know will work against this defense. I am then going to call that play, and we're going to run with it. That is what having a veteran quarterback will do. It's like, listen, when you have a situation on the field, you don't get panicked, you don't start worrying. It's like, hey, you know what? I got this. I'm going to check it, and we're going to keep on moving. It's kind of like having a coach on the field. That was what made Peyton Manning so great, was like, hey, it's like having an offensive coordinator on the field. It's like having a coach on the field. That was how good Peyton Manning was at doing his job. I'm not saying that Jared Goff is there yet, but what we are hearing is that, hey, Jared Goff can go up to the line with having 3 or 4 different plays in his back pocket. And we just saw another example about how here in practice he did the exact same thing, and it had a massive positive result. So that's one thing that was also noted. The next thing that we're going to talk about is in the situational period. In the situational period, what happens is the Lions offense, it's put into some sort of hellacious tough position, tough situation, and it's their job to somehow find a way to overcome the adversity, overcome the odds, and get things done. Usually it's like, hey, you got to score a touchdown or you got to get a field goal or something. You only got like 50 seconds to a minute or something, maybe a timeout or not. Well, in this particular instance, Jared Goff in the first string offense, they had a 51-second, period to work with. They had one timeout to work with. And what they had to do is they had to get a touchdown to win because they were down 30-24 in this hypothetical situation, and they had to go 49 yards to do it. So what happened? Jared Goff drove the offense down the field with precise accuracy and also with being able to make sure the balls that he were throwing were able to go to the sideline. So number one, the clock could be stopped without burning that timeout, but also at the same time, the wide receivers knew what was going on because there were technically 7 plays about what happened. The first play, Jared Goff throws a 22-yard gain to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously having the awareness he has, he runs out of bounds. The next play is a 9-yard gain to Jameson Williams. That's when the timeout's burned. The next 2 plays are incomplete passes, pardon me. Then we have the 5th play, which is a 14-yard gain again to Jameson Williams. And then, obviously, they hurry up to the line. This is the 6th play. They spike the ball. And then on the 7th play, Jared Goff throws an 8-yard touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown coming over the middle. Again, this is what you want to hear. Because that right there tells me something. The first team offense is already in fine form. You've got 51 seconds. You've got 1 timeout. You've got to drive down the field 49 yards and you've got to score so that way you can win. That right there tells me, hey, when the pressure is on, the offense is remaining cool under pressure. They're methodically moving down the field. Even when things don't go their way for a couple of plays, they just dust themselves off, move into the next play, and what happens? Hey, they score the touchdown, ball game. Detroit Lions win. That's what you want to see in those types of situational drills. The ability to remain cool under pressure, the ability to go out, be able to think through the situation without losing your head and actually get the job done. And that's what we saw out of the first string offense, which is good to see because, again, it's early in training camp, but they're already showing the ability to be cool under pressure, and that is really, in my opinion, going to serve them well once we get to the regular season. But however, that was not the only group that did it. Obviously, the second team offense got a chance to do it. And Nate Sudfeld led the second team offense. That again is a pretty big indicator about where Hendon Hooker is in this whole argument or this whole discussion of the backup quarterback position. Not going to divulge too more on that, but that's what I'm trying to say there. Anyway, Nate Sudfeld, second team offense. They were also successful in being able to complete this drill and get it done. But theirs was a little bit different. They were again down by a touchdown, and they, had to make a drive as well. But they were only starting at the 35-yard line, albeit they also only had 28 seconds and a timeout. So it's like, hey, you got less yardage to go, but you got significantly less time as well. Well, Nate Sudfeld and the second team offense, they only needed 2 plays to get it done. The very first play was a 10-yard gain by a throw to Tom Kennedy, who again understood where the sideline was. He was going to the left sideline. He goes out of bounds, stops the clock. The next play was a 25-yard touchdown pass to Caden Davis, who was in the back of the end zone, and according to Tim Twentyman, he did a great job getting his feet down so that way he could catch the pass. Again, this is something else you want to hear from your backups. It's like, hey, heaven forbid, you have an injury that occurs to a starter. It's like, hey, do we have competent backups who can come in and in a pinch, they can do what we need them to do in order to get the job done? That's what we're seeing out of the second team offense here. It's like, hey, you know what? If for whatever reason something happens, we have guys that we can plug in. We don't necessarily have to worry too much. They can go out and they can do the job. They can also maintain cool under pressure. That's what you want to hear. Now, what I will say is this. Great job by the offense. I will also say that the defense, I would like to hear that they were doing a little bit of a better job in comparison to the offense. Again, us Lions fans know the offense is fine. The biggest question mark or the biggest wonder, the biggest thing that we're paying attention to this training camp is how the defense reacts. Hey, you know what? Our defensive backs were able to garner interceptions by Hendon Hooker and one by Jared Goff. That's great. But how's the whole defense as a whole working together? The linebackers, the safeties, the cornerbacks, the linemen. That's what we want to hear. And when you hear this, great news from the offense. That's what I want to hear. But I would also like to hear that the defense is getting a little bit more, on the offense's case to where it's not so easy as it sounds right here. Just an FYI, kind of like my thoughts out there. Now, to end this whole episode, we're going to talk about something that does not pertain to the offense or the defense. We're going to be talking about special teams. We're going to talk about Jake Bates. Apparently what happened is Jake Bates once again took all the kicks because while they are trying out other kickers to see who else they're going to bring in to compete with Jake Bates is still the only kicker on the roster that has been officially signed. And Jake Bates had a pretty solid day today. It wasn't necessarily the greatest day, but it was a solid day. He had 10 kicks where he made out of those 10, 7. So he made 70% of his kicks. Of the makes that he had, he made it from 54, 50, 48, 2 from 46, 1 from 41, and 1 from 37. The ones that he missed were from 60, 54, and 50. Now, I know some people are going to be worried about the fact that he missed from 60, but let's understand something here. We've seen videos prior to practice, back before, the whole staff started cracking down on phones from what we've been hearing from Derek from Lion Syndicate, somebody took a video that showed freaking Jake Bates kicking a field goal from 60-plus yards out, and there was plenty of room to spare as far as distance was concerned. So let's understand something here. Just because he missed from 60, let's not let that go to our heads. Let's not get worried. We clearly know this guy has plenty of leg. We clearly know that he has definitely got the capability. At this point, it's just him kind of acclimating to the NFL a little bit. And again, the fact that he's going out there and he's making a lot more than he's missing, I'm fine with that. Just so long as that trend continues and he gets better and better every day. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. And that's what we are hearing. But having said that, I figured that this was a good overview about, the observations that were done at training camp for day 6. So having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode I got coming out. But I also encourage y'all to watch previous episodes that I've already released. Want to also encourage y'all again to please subscribe. It really helps me out and I'm ever so thankful. But I also want to make sure that if you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. The more we share it, the greater the channel has a chance to spread, the greater reach it has, the more people that we get to watch the content, and the more conversation and discussion that we have. So please, share the content anywhere and everywhere you can. Share it on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Doesn't matter. Share, share, share. And with that being said, I hope y'all are having a great day. I hope y'all have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. I hope y'all enjoyed the content. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see y'all in the next episode.